Oh man, I had so much fun with this art tutorial video. I really hope I get to make another one in the future, but I really don't know if I'll be able to. If you make another art tutorial video, we'll sponsor it. You better not say psych right now, because I am so in. That's right, I get to make another art tutorial video. For those of you who haven't been around on my channel as long, I actually make most of the artwork in my videos unless I specify otherwise. I also make a lot of videos on my friends' channels as well. And lately I've been getting really excited about making fun new stream layouts. One of the ones in particular being my long rest chat stream. Something like long resting with your D&D party. I wanted to be able to sit by a campfire with my viewers while underneath a beautiful starry sky. But this started off as this. A really basic sketch. I don't claim to be a master of art at all. I'm not. But I'm hoping by showing my process, I can actually help you guys with a few little tips, tricks, and shortcuts that I've learned about rendering different pieces. So let's get started. You can see my initial sketch is very sketchy. It's very not clean. So I actually ended up doing a second layover of that figure. I cleaned it up a little bit. When your sketches are really messy, your mind already fills the gaps as to what the right line is. But that means when you go and do the line art, it may not look exactly how you wanted to when you first sketched it out. By me going through and doing a more clean, still a little messy sketch, I have less of a chance of screwing up my line art. Once the line art for the figure's done, then I get to do the fun part of filling out all the main colors. I already had a reference created for my character's primary colors, so it was really easy for me to just color pick from that and then put it into the new piece. One thing you'll notice though in the speed paint is that I actually made two different light sources. I have the main light source that's coming from the fire, which is stronger, so I made it bigger, and then I have a secondary light source that's coming down from the top that's a softer blue. I basically just wanted to add a little bit more light coming from the night sky, which made it a little bit more blue, a little bit more cool, so I got to play with color a little bit more. Plus, by adding these light sources early on, I know where my main shadows are going to be, which is what you see when I'm doing the first initial run through of a little bit of shadows that are harder. And what I mean by harder is that the line is clean and smooth. There isn't a lot of blurring going on for these initial shadows. Once I had a first pass of color done, I got to do one of my favorite little experimentation methods when it comes to figure lighting, which is just adding a bunch of the different color layers that Clip Studio has to offer. When doing mood lighting, something similar to what I'm doing right now, I usually lean more into the soft light or hard light features. What I love about soft light and hard light is that it gives it a little bit of a highlight and tint of the color instead of just adding brightness or adding darkness. It changes the hue of the piece, but it doesn't take over the entire design, which is something I found myself getting a little bit lost in when I was initially working with Clip Studio. I used a lot of multiply and a lot of color dodge when I was first starting out, and so it led to a lot of pieces looking very high in contrast, but not as interesting looking. So the soft light is great. I also don't really make the soft light very heavily detailed in the sense of it's not clean. I make it messy because it's meant to be a little bit messy. It's a softer light. Plus the overlays of the softer lights on top of each other when they're having those gradients happening is just so pretty, and I love it so much. It doesn't even have to be used for a highlight. I usually use a softer light or a harder light for the darker tones as well, because it just adds that tint and makes it a little bit darker in contrast, but doesn't take away from the color and the vibrancy, and it just looks so good and I want to eat it. Once I had the figure rendered, I made a super duper messy sketch of what I wanted the background to generally look like. A big reason why I made a very brief layout of it is that I knew I was going to be using a more painterly style for rendering the rest of the picture. It wasn't going to perfectly align with my sketch no matter what I did, so I might as well just not worry too much about it in the first run. Then came the rendering of the tree. God, I love this tree. Rendering it was so much fun, and that's primarily because I just decided to use a bunch of different brush textures. By using the different brush textures, I wanted to make the tree feel more alive, plus having the different colors be the different brush strokes as well really played a lot into the highlight and shadow of the piece, which I really loved. It also means that it's never going to look quite the same if you draw it twice, but honestly, I find that a little fun. What I find even more fun is having a material brush that I love. When making things like the grass and the trees, I don't have time to make all those little pieces of grass, but I want that texture to be there. This is where you get to cheat with digital art. Particularly on Clip Studio, there's actually community brushes that you can download that people have created, and they're insane. There are trees, clouds, grass. There's a wood texture. I didn't want to use it for this particular piece because I wanted the tree to feel a little bit more fantasy, but for the grass, I used several different brushes, and I love them all so very much. because I love how fluffy the final product looks. At some point, I'm going to make my own brushes for different textures because I absolutely love that it saves me so much time, but I still want to be able to add my own style into it. But I'll be able to learn how to make those new brushes a lot faster with our sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is the largest online community for creatives, and they have a whole bunch of different topics to pick from, like illustration, graphic design, photography, and music, which for me is great because I'm really good at creating music, but mixing and mastering music is something I have no idea what to do. But that's why I'm so excited they have classes with people like King Arthur, professionals who already know what they're doing, so I can go into a mixing class as a beginner and move into more expert courses at my own pace. I'm so excited that I get to start using Skillshare, especially when they've started the ability to find classes by software and material. I use a different software than a lot of my other creatives do when they make music, so being able to find a class that actually uses what I use is so refreshing. I don't have to learn where the button is, I just get to find it. Also, the first 500 people who use my custom link get to try out Skillshare for a month free! So find your classes and get started with Skillshare. I know I sounded way too excited about that, but again, I've been wanting to use Skillshare for the longest time, and now I finally get to do it. I'm so happy. But back to the piece. So when it comes to this point, I actually took these custom brushes and made them my own without making them my own. Taking any of the custom pattern brushes and either erasing pieces of them or drawing on top of them gives you the ability to create your own style without sacrificing as much time. In particular, I loved doing that with the fire because for that fire specifically, I ended up animating it and I didn't want to have to constantly draw the fire every single time. So by using a pattern brush, drawing slightly over it and then erasing pieces after the fact makes it look truly unique while also not causing me a headache. And that's how you end up getting to this final product. You know, feel free to play around with your colors, feel free to experiment with different brushes and tools. Have fun with what you're doing, because that's ultimately what I did. And I am actually really proud of how this turned out. I also love making these little tutorial videos, and I actually plan on making more in the future with a couple of guests as well. So I hope you guys will stick around for those. I'm also still definitely making music, so don't worry about that either. You can expect those videos soon. All right, peace guys.